Welcome to Soul, Light, and Body. How are you guys doing today? Today, we just want to send out prayers to the people in the Caribbean who is experiencing now the hurricane, and it's really really bad there. And we're just sending out prayers for you that you will continue to have the faith and the strength at this point in time. And if there is anything that you have to donate, look for organizations that is sending things down to the Caribbean to help these people. Look for organizations like Salvation Army, maybe, and other organizations who is sending stuff down to really help them there because they can really use outside help at this point in time. So look around and see if there's anything that you have in your home that you know that you really want to donate. You could look for charities that is helping people in the Caribbean at this point in time, and you could probably just go donate it to help them out. Today we have Paulette back in the house. You guys love her so much, so we had to bring her back for a second round. And today she's gonna touch on a very interesting topic: knowing your child's strengths and weaknesses, because we experience and maybe caregivers and we sometimes struggle in this area. And Paulette is here this evening, and she's going to help and guide us through with some pointers that we can help ourselves with our kids and look for signs of their weaknesses and look for signs of their strength and how we can help them, because remember, they are the future generation. And many times we kind of oversight a lot of things, and it starts from since they are pretty young. We got to pay attention to what they like and what they don't really like, and we can start to enhance them from at that very young age to explore their passion. Because many times we meet adulthood and we ask ourselves, what is our passion? And many times we gotta go back to our grandparents and or to our parents, and we gotta ask them, as a child growing up, what are some of the things that that I really love to do at that point in time? And then they would say, okay, you love to write, or some little kids, they like to pick up a something, and sometimes they're singing. All of those things is telling you something about that child. But we are not paying attention to what these kids are doing. But those are signs of things that they love. That's their passion. So we as parents or caregivers, we have to pay attention to what these children are doing. Or sometimes they may draw a picture, and sometimes we as parents will say, I don't understand what you draw there. That looks stupid. No, you got to look at the picture. And that picture could tell 1,000 words. It starts from since you were little. So Paulette is here this evening, and she's going to walk us through with some pointers that we can look at our children and see exactly the things that they love, and we can help them to develop those skills. And those skills is going to help to take them into adulthood. And also, it's all about a mindset, because many times in the home, sometimes you find that we don't talk so well to our children. And we really need to pay attention to that as well. How we speak to our children, the things that we're doing in front of our children. All those things help to mold them as little kids growing up. So we got to really pay attention. The role model, we are the role model for them. So we have to pay attention with some of the things that we're doing in front of these kids. Miss Joan is going to be a little bit late. She's going to join us a little bit late this evening. But for now, we're going to go ahead with Paulette. And I am Karen Pascal, holistic health and wellness coach, and a co-author of 2 books with my sister Joan, Your Gut in You and Self-Care is Intentional. If you haven't grabbed a copy as yet, you got to go to Amazon and grab a copy. The links are in the comments below. Also, Paulette book links are in the comments below. Just go and grab yourself a copy. And this evening, get a pen and a paper, because you got to take some notes. Prepare yourself to take some notes, because Paulette is going to give us some real good, juicy nuggets to help us along the journey with our kids. So Paula, welcome to Soul, Light and Body once again. Thank you for saying yes for the second round.
Yeah,
Kindly,
5 past midnight. So we're doing
I
well so
know.
far.
Thank you for staying up.
I
Can
had
you
I I
reintroduce
had a
yourself? Because
sleep. I did have a sleep earlier so that I would
oh,
be
great.
ready.
So you're all ready to go.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I've done my notes.
Okay,
Um,
thank you so much. So can you, for the new people that are joining us this evening,
yeah,
can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're living, and how Paulette get to this point of writing, being an author of beautiful books for children?
absolutely. Yeah. So Paulette Hallam. I was a corporate girl. Went all the way to the glass ceiling. And retired at the age of 55. And partly through ill health, but partly because it was the right thing to do. I'm going to be 60 at the end of the month. And I know,
You
old
don't look
age.
like that though, Paulette.
Oh, you're so cute.
You
Um,
look good.
it's painkillers. so, um, so the thing that I would say is that having done all that as a corporate person, I'd always had a love for children. I'd always had a love for understanding children, and never having had a child, and then out of the blue at 39 being pregnant and having my son gave me the opportunity to delve into being a parent. And it's not easy. And it became very clear to me with Ben having autism that we had to learn a whole new language. And a lot of that language is nonverbal. And it really does help you. It changed me as a person in my communication skills. It changed me watching other people parent and go, actually, have you tried this? And they go, it worked. And it's like, wow, who'd have thought it? But the thing is, it's about knowing. And half the time we don't know, unless we are experienced in this particular field, we don't know. So I
Yeah,
became a fully qualified counsellor, thinking that that was going to be my future. And it ended up becoming a revolving door. So we decided that I couldn't possibly do that anymore because I'd end up completely bonkers. So the answer was, how can I reach children en masse? We started going to schools, then realised that we can't cover the country. So writing books gives us the opportunity to reach more children, and in a way that we're getting the message to the children, but when the parents read the book, they too get the message. It's like a double whammy,
yes,
it's because we don't know how emotionally intelligent we are as
yeah,
parents, because we carry a lot of baggage, we carry a lot of stuff that happened to us, and as such you don't realize it, but you pass that on, and the expectations, if your dad was a doctor and the granddad was a doctor, then the expectation is that you'll be a doctor. That's just kind of the way it is. And it's like, I want to be an architect. No, I don't think so. You're going to be a doctor. It's like, no, no, no. Listen to me. I love drawings. I like technical drawing, and this is where my strengths are. And you're going to be a doctor, you're going to take sciences, and you're going to go down that route. So that's just a real sort of a very basic way of understanding what we're going to talk about. But there's a quote by Brené Brown I think is really good, and it is, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And I think the vulnerability part is the important bit. When you are vulnerable, you are able to really show up, and show up for your child in a way that perhaps you wouldn't do normally, because you're being the big tough parent. But when you're vulnerable, actually is when you get the best stuff out of each other, because you not only get the best stuff, but you're passing on the best stuff.
hmm,
So something that I wrote down was, you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
how can we judge somebody for not knowing? You can't blame somebody for bad parenting if they don't know any better. So it's really about understanding your child, and your child is different to every other child, and
Sure.
every child is different. But there are three things that all children want, and
Mhm.
that is to be seen, to be
Yes.
heard, and
Yes.
to be valued.
Yes.
They're the three things that every child, without fail, want. And when I say seen, that means I really like technical drawing. I don't like the sciences. I want to do history of art and technical drawing. And the parents are going, we've been a family of doctors for forever. And the child's going, but that's not me. And it's a fight, because it's not what you expected. It's you're going against the grain. And that makes it very hard sometimes in family situations for people to really understand. Let your child be their own person. They aren't a product of what you want. They are who they are. And yes, we can direct, and we can suggest, and we can even manipulate to a large degree in a good way. But what they are at the end of the day is who they want to be. And we have to be big enough and brave enough and ugly enough to say that that's how it's going to be, right? So the thing that I wanted to talk about was when a child wants to express themselves to you, there's a thing that I learned, and I learned it through a book years ago that I read, and it was called Big Fish, Little Fish. And it's like, what on earth has that got to do with life, right? But big fish is a big fish problem. Big fish is a whale, it's a biggie, and it's got to be dealt with. And the expectation is, if it's a big fish problem, we're expecting a big fish solution or a big fish reaction, right? But if it's a small fish, likewise, we're going to expect a small fish reaction and a small fish um, answer to that problem. It doesn't ever need to be the big fish reaction. But what happens with families is we give a big fish reaction to a small fish problem. So a child comes home from school and says, I got a D in my exam, in my test." Instead of asking, how do you feel, right? It's a D. We've never had D's, why have you got a D? Blah 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 blah. And then they say, well, actually, do you remember when I was off sick for those 2 weeks when I had COVID? And then mum goes, yep. Go, well, that was the 2 weeks they studied for this particular test. And that's the bit where they learned all about this stuff. And the teachers were supposed to send me on the stuff that I missed out on, and they didn't do it. So I didn't revise it because I didn't have it. So how could I get an A or a B when I didn't actually have the information? So if the child is able to verbalize to that level, that is a small fish problem and a small fish reaction. But the D in the parent gives the big fish reaction, right? Immediately the parent goes to, oh, the world's going to fall down and crash around us because you got a D, right? But actually, if they had chosen just to rewind a few minutes and understand that, what does the D mean? The D means, okay, there was an issue. And you feel like compelled to write to the school and say, I don't think this is fair, because this has massively affected little Johnny's confidence, and it's not really fair because he didn't have the information. And if you remember, he was off sick. And then all of a sudden, instead of being against little Johnny, you're on little Johnny's team. You're both fighting the same fight together. And it's just, that's a very small example, but it just shows you how we can go the completely opposite direction. We can go to this huge reaction over something that is very minor. And I think that's the key to everything we're going to talk about today. And if you always remember big fish, little fish. So, big fish problem, big fish reaction. Okay, get it, right? There was I don't know, that said there was a shooting at school, massively terrified everybody. Get that would be a big fish situation at school, big fish reaction at home. Totally get that. But when it's a situation where you're saying somebody fell over in the playground and cut their knee, that's a small fish problem and a
Yes.
small fish reaction. It's not a great, oh my gosh, someone fell over. Oh my God, how are they? How many stitches were there? Oh no, they just got a Band-Aid.
Yes.
It was dealt with,
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It's just something about the way that we react is historic. It's our
Yes.
history that we put on to every situation. And for example, that D might remind you of a time when you got a D and
True.
how your parents reacted. And without even knowing it, you've just absolutely duplicated exactly what happened to you.
True.
Yeah. And
True. True.
you always said, I'm not going to parent the way my parents parented. And yet, bosh, you're straight back there. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that you've forgotten the boundaries that you put in place that were going to be different. And unfortunately, that's not what happens. You go down this route of, okay, so this is how I react. This is what happened to me. And it's out of your mouth before you've even realized you said it. So I
True.
think that's one of the ways that we can understand weaknesses. We all have an intuition. We talked about this last time I was on, about our gut instinct. And our gut instinct as parents isn't always in alignment with the gut instinct of our child. Because unless you've talked to your child about their gut instinct and that feeling in their stomach and nerves and anxieties and all those things, then without realizing it, you're stressed because they've got a test, right? I remember a headmaster once said to me, your child's got to sit an entrance exam to our school. And I said, okay. And he said, okay. I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I said, we'll get a couple of books on the newsagents that you can buy about this verbal reasoning, non-verbal reasoning. And these non-verbal reasoning were questions, look at pictures and what's the odd one out and all this kind of stuff. And then the non-verbal reasoning is answering questions. And anyway, when we turned up for the actual test, we met a couple of parents and they were like, oh, we've done the rounds. We've been to 2 or 3 schools. We've done the entrance exams of all these schools. And I was like, oh, yeah. And they were like, what have you done? And I was like, well, he's done a couple of books that I bought, he's done a couple of books. They were like, oh, the prep schools have been doing this all for the last 6 months. They've been preparing their children for this situation. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, my child, to my knowledge, has never sat for an hour and a half.
Wow.
In an exam, to my knowledge. He's never sat for that long, let alone actually done an exam, right? He's 7.
Right.
And you're thinking, is he going to be able to cope with this? Is he going to do it? And there was a few sort of people that were being a little bit, oh yes, our little Johnny's been to this school and that school, and we're going to try all these schools, do all these entrance exams. And I was thinking, oh, what have we done, Ben? I'm so sorry. We've let you down, because he's going to go in there and he's not going to do it because he hasn't got the experience. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what a terrible parent I am. I should have got him a tutor. I should have done some work on this. And actually, all we did was go sit down there and do a couple of these tests tonight for me, can you? just run through a couple of tests. If you got any problems, give us a shout. It was like
Right.
that kind of conversation. We spoke to Ben very grown up because he was very mature. So we were always able to have that kind of communication with him. Anyway, he goes off with his little pencil case and a drink, bottle of water, and all the parents are sort of left standing outside chatting and getting a coffee and whatever. And it was such a nervous anxiety. It was palpable. You could feel it in the room. The
Wow.
parents were on absolute,
Wow.
nervous ends because they were like, "Oh my gosh, what if my child doesn't pass this exam?
Yes.
What if the?" And there we were standing there going, "Well, if he doesn't pass, he goes to a different school. Does it really matter? No, not really. It wasn't the be all and end all that
Mm-hmm.
so many people in that room had turned it into." And I
Yes.
guess because Ben was very chilled, he was very
Mm-hmm.
chilled. He just went walking off. The only thing I thought was, is he going to be able to sit for an hour and a half? Because to my knowledge, he's never been quiet for an hour and a half, and he's never been
Yes.
sat still for that long. But actually, he did it. He came out,
Wow.
and I was really anxious. At the moment he came out, I was fine, right up
Yeah.
until I saw his face, and he had a sort of a kind of like grin on his face, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's a bit weird. And he came out, and I said, how did I said to Charles, we're not going to say how did you get on. We're not going to say that. We're just going to say, was it okay? Something like that. Immediately came through. How was it? Said I. All the things we weren't going to do, I did. And he turned around and he went, I think I got one or two wrong. And it was like,
Wow.
okay. So there were parents around me heard that, and one of those was one of the parents who said, "Oh, my child's been doing these tests for months at school and being prepared." And there's my child coming out going, "Oh, I think I've got one or two wrong," but other than that, they were fine.
Mhm.
And he got offered a scholarship to go to the school.
Wow.
I turned it down. It's funny. It was only like 5%, but I turned it down for the reason that I didn't want him being labelled. It was bad enough him being a bit different without him being different and labelled. I thought it might make him stand out a
Mhm.
bit too much. So I preferred it that we didn't have that scholarship, that we just left him not having to go to scholar meetings and doing all this.
Yeah.
Why make him different? He's got to live with this autistic condition anyway.
Mhm.
Why add to it?
Yeah, I
And people were
understand.
like, you turned down a scholarship. And I was like, listen, it wasn't even going to cover the school lunches, so it wasn't like it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want that label, because for me, I felt like he's got enough labels. He doesn't need any more.
Mhm.
So going back to like strengths and weaknesses, he walked out of there so confident, so such a little man, that it was like, yeah, yeah, that's fine. You know, I was like, wow, who is this child? And then when we got the letter saying you've got a place and would like to da 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 da, but they phoned us to say that he'd done so well. They actually phoned
Wow.
before they sent the letter, um, and they said we're thinking of offering him a scholarship. Da 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 da, and I was one that said, would you not please do that, because I don't want him labelled as anything else other than just
Mhm.
Ben. I just want him to cope with being Ben for now.
Yeah.
But yes, I'd like to accept the place. So we accepted the place and we paid the full amount, so it wasn't an issue. And when we spoke about it since, he said one of his really good friends said to him, I can't believe how you didn't get a scholarship when Sansa got a scholarship. And Ben was like, yeah, I don't know why. And then he asked me, and of course I had to tell him the truth. And I said, well, actually, you did get offered a scholarship, but we turned it down because, and I
Mhm.
gave him the reason. I was like, oh, that's fine, I get it. And he was,
Ah.
and that shows me that open dialogue has been by far the most important thing that we've ever had. And that's
Mhm.
why the topic of weaknesses and strengths are so important, because
Yes.
all of those parents in that room were putting so much pressure on
Wow.
their children. And actually, they they shouldn't have done that.
Yes.
If
Yes.
all the children had skipped into that test the same way Ben did, and I wouldn't say they could all skip out the same way, but they would all have been able to have handled it in the
Mhm.
same way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, there were kids crying,
Oh,
there were children in
wow.
all sorts of states, parents
Wow.
holding their children, telling them it didn't
Wow.
matter. And we were just like walking out casually, thinking, and there were lots of parents who we never saw again. So we assumed that their
Wow.
children didn't make it. Or maybe they went to a different school. But the point is, instead of being all about the results, it should have been, you're going to do this test, you've got to do it. You like the school. If you want to go to the school, this is the rules. And as
Mhm.
long as I explained it to Ben like that, he got it. And it's about boundaries, because it's like, I can't get you in that school unless
Yeah.
you do the test. So it's not like there's any other option. You got to do it,
Mhm.
you know? And there
Yeah.
are some things in life you've got to do. He hated
Yeah.
he hated cross country. Cross country was the bane of his life, year on year. For 7 years, he hated cross country. He hated it with a vengeance, but he did it. He
Yeah.
never once said, "Can I be off sick and not go to
Mhm.
school today?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think to myself, that's my way of parenting, is to say, even though you might be in the last street that passed the line, you're there and you did it, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in life, there are going to be situations
Yes.
you're going to come across that you don't like, but you've got
Yes.
to do them, right?
Yes.
So there's no point me saying to him, yeah, you can take a sickie and not do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather be standing there and rooting him on and screaming for him. And when
Yes.
it comes to the finish line, they still put the bit of ribbon up. And if you saw the
Yes.
photograph of him coming through the finish line with his arms up in the air, it looks like he won.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
his mind, he did. He won his own
Yes.
personal battle of finishing it, right? And I've got these great photographs, and people would think he won the cross country because the photograph looks like, yeah, yes, he's done it,
Yeah.
and it's about, one parent said to me, I remember, I didn't know them very well, and they said to me in a rather loud voice, well, some children just aren't made for running. So I sort of looked at her, and the headmaster was standing just to my side. And I said, yes, you're right. I said, but Ben's representing the whole school in a quiz next week.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
said, so he might not be the child that can run. I said, but he just did it, and he finished it, and he completed it. I
Yes.
said, and he'll represent the whole school in the cross country, in the
Yes.
quiz next week. So, um, the parent huffed off. And as the parent sort of dropped off my head, the headmaster said to me in my ear, I want to say well done, but I don't think I should. And the point is, we all have these, like, what gave that right to that parent to say to me, oh, your child is, rubbish at cross country.
Yeah.
And then, but why did I feel the need to defend him by saying, but he's a great academic? What did it matter? I should have just gone,
Mhm.
ignore the person, they don't matter. But you don't. You're in your fight mode,
Yes.
fight or
Yes.
flight, and we're going to go into fight mode. um but it's an example again of, his weakness was that he hated running, and sports day wasn't his thing. And he's got three cousins who are absolutely crazy mad, sports mad children, and we're,
Mhm.
captains of all the teams. And Ben is not that way inclined. But then
Mhm.
Ben loves to sing, and he's sung since he was a very young boy and at a very high standard. And he sings in the uh it's Lisa.
Yeah,
He sings,
Lisa.
yeah, he sings in the chamber choir at the um at the university, and it's a
Wow.
very select group. There's only 30 something of them, and they travel, to foreign countries. They're going to
Wow.
Budapest. He went and sang in the Duomo in Italy. The huge big
Wow.
building last year. On a trip with the university. So there are things that Ben does that they don't do. Ben was in all the shows. They never would have dreamed of it. Those children had no more interest in being on the stage. They'd
Yeah.
rather die than be on the stage.
Yes.
And I guess that's the answer, really. We are all different. Every child is different. And we
Yes.
have to stop putting them in boxes and
Yes.
saying, you will be a sports. You're going to be a great baseball player because your
Yeah.
granddad was.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be an amazing X, Y, or Z because that's what they were. You're going to be a doctor because for 3 generations, it was all doctors before. So it's all about kind of understanding that really we have to start letting our children show us and tell us what they
Yes.
want, how they want, and be able to be far more reactive to what their needs are. So that's the big fish little fish thing. By having a conversation. I mean, Ben asked us some, horrendous questions. And I was sitting at dinner once with him, and they'd obviously had a very dodgy conversation at school, and somebody had brought some porn in on their phone.
Wow.
And we didn't know any of this. And then Ben, we were all eating our dinner. I remember it as clear as anything. We were all eating our dinner, and we got a mouthful of food. And Ben says, Have you and Dad ever had a threesome? Right? You know, what? Who said that? Where'd that come from? Like, what? You're 12. What the heck? Um, and then I find out that somebody's got this on a phone, and the
Wow.
school have given them internet. So that gives it's the school's responsibility to make sure that that was shut down and those things weren't able to be
Yes.
brought in. And I phoned the duty of care officer and told them, and they then said they were going to stop and search, and they were going to take phones and iPads. And if they found anything dodgy, they were going to be, bosh.
Right.
There were going to be serious consequences. So that nobody knew it was me that phoned the school and dobbed them in. But the fact that we'd had to sit through that, we were like, he didn't really know what he was saying.
I
He
know,
had
right?
no clue. But for us, it was like, how the heck are we supposed to deal with that one?
Yeah, true,
Um,
true.
and I just turned around and I just said, no, no. I said, just so you know, it's not normal, right? It's not normal. That's not what would happen in a normal relationship. And, one day when you get older and you get married and have a wife or whatever, that, that's not something that will ever be part of your life because it isn't
Mhm.
normal. And, we can't normalize this stuff, and we shouldn't normalize this stuff.
Yeah,
And a child expressing something like that, I mean,
yeah.
that's the autism with the complete lack of filter. You know, Another child might know to think, probably shouldn't ask this question.
Yes,
They
yes.
might ask it, but they probably know they shouldn't. Whereas Ben would be like, it's just a question,
It just
you know, just throwing it out there. And the thing is, we there's been so many of those kind of conversations where you step back and you think, oh my gosh, is this for real?
I know,
Um,
right?
did we really have that conversation? But actually, the point that is so important to learn here is that the strength is in being honest.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
I love the fact that a child can be so honest with
yes,
themselves and with everybody
yes,
around them, and
yes,
they might say things that that person doesn't want to hear.
yes,
Like I told you about the cake
yes,
story, they
yes,
might well, unfortunately, the autism will show itself in that respect,
yeah,
but the honesty is always there, you know. And teachers would say to Ben, what happened? And Ben would go, well, first this person did that, then that person said this, then that person threw the chair, then this happened, and that happened. And he would give them like a fully running commentary of the whole
wow,
event. And I would be like, why are you using my child like that? You know, he isn't your eyes and your ears. Do not use my child like that, because that
yeah,
sets him against the class,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're now the teacher's pet who tells the teacher everything. And the
yeah,
teacher would be like, well, I just saw that it was like, I'd get the truth from Ben. And you're like,
yeah,
yeah, you will get the truth, but it's not the right thing to do.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that there's a part of me that says that about all children. You know, if we need to get to the point. I had a conversation with a mum the other day, and she was saying that her child is not non-verbal, but it just isn't a child who talks a lot. So a lot of ADHD children, a lot of children who went through COVID, didn't have the socialization. There's an awful lot of kids who are like this at the moment. And she asked me if there was something that you could do to try and help. And I said I would have a chatterbox. And she was like, a what? I said, a chatterbox. She said, what's a chatterbox? And you said, you sit down and you all write one word that is
Mm-hmm.
something that you'd like to discuss, or something you think is funny, or something that you think is interesting, or
Mm-hmm.
something, you know, like you might want to write down the word holidays, or you might want to write down the word swimming or something. And then you just fold it up, you put it in the chatterbox, and it's just a box, and you shake it up, and you put your hand in, and you bring out something, and it might be something you said, something somebody else chose, and then you read it and you have to come up with a couple of sentences about
Yes,
that. So
word,
there's no
yes,
phones, there's no devices. This is just around the dinner table, and you're having a conversation. And
yes,
we are teaching children the basics of conversation again, because the art of conversation is disappearing.
yes,
And so the chatterbox is a really good way of a child opens up a holiday and says, oh, holiday, I got a holiday. I love holidays. And then one of the parents might say, well, what was your favorite holiday? Where did we go? What did we do? And then you start asking the basic where's, why's, when's. And before you know where you are involved in a 5 to 6 minute conversation with your child that you have never had before. And
mm-hmm.
they're like, how did you do that? It's like magic.
Yes,
And it's not magic, it's a deliberate ploy to get them on side so that they can actually. I agree, Tom. Um, but it's absolutely, you know, one of the best ways in the ever to get that conversation going, you know, to
mm-hmm.
actually have a conversation with children that are frightened to speak, don't want to speak. They've
Yeah,
got 101 reasons why they'd rather pick up a device and run away from the table.
yeah, yeah,
The last
yeah,
the last mouthful goes in and the phone is up and they're off.
yeah,
And there's no thanks for the dinner, mum. Shall I put the plate in the dishwasher, mum? There's none of
yes,
that. They've just gone. They've just left the room. And that's it, they've gone for the night. That
yeah,
will be the last you see of them till it's bedtime.
so
And what
true.
we need to do is change that. And we need to do it in a way that you create their strengths by giving them the chance to speak, by giving them the chance to actually I think anyway. I think by giving them the chance to be children and be
Mm-hmm.
themselves,
True, true,
you
true,
know,
true, true.
and that so the chatterbox is a great way of helping children to start, and because you put into it, you feel an part ownership of it. You know,
Yes.
if there's four of you in the family, and even the little, maybe the little child's only 4 or 5, the other child, you say to them, can you give me 5 words? And it might be happy, or it might be sunshine, or it might be sandpit, or whatever it'll be.
Yeah.
They're the words that go in. And it doesn't matter who gets that word, that's what you have to talk about for a couple of minutes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it can become such a great way
Mm-hmm.
of a child opening up. And they might even tell you they've always hated sand. And you're
Yeah.
like, but why have you never told me? I hate the feel of
Right.
it on my feet. I don't like sitting on it. I've never liked playing with it. But we've always gone on holiday and played on the beach. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
hate it. Well, why have you never told us? Because everybody else enjoys it. And
Yes.
it's like, we didn't know. We would, if we hadn't have played the chatterbox game, we would never know. And I think
Right.
that's part of the learning. It's being in a position where you really are able to know your child. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't do that because our children are so um it's a difficult word to use, but they're introverted. They have
Yes.
all become introverted.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
need to almost break that shell and say,
Yeah.
no, we're not having that. We're going to peel back that onion and we're going to get inside whether you like it or not,
Yes.
because we have to, because that's where we learn where we go forward, how we go
True.
forward. You know, when I said Ben's always been a singer, he's always been a singer. I mean, his showers would be half an hour long because he had to do his full repertoire, you know.
Yes.
Every time there was a carry. In fact, his birthday's going to be 21 in September, and we're having a joint birthday party, and we're having
Wow.
karaoke. Karaoke.
Nice.
Oh no, I'm a nightmare. I can ruin every song, but he will get up there and sing. You know, people will
Wow.
love it. For half an hour, he'll just knock your socks off. You know, do a whole whole gig. But
Yes.
his friends will all be up there cheering him on as well, and that's lovely, right? And I get that, and I think, well, that's fine. I'll get up and murder a couple of songs. I'm sure I can do that for the sake of his birthday. You know, the chocolate. The other thing you wanted was the chocolate fountain. That I can get on board with. But
Yeah.
you know that the thing that you have to understand is I noticed when he was
Right.
a baby that when
Yes.
there was something musical on the telly, he used to sit in that little rocking chair and you would see his
And he's
body moving
rocking.
to the music,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
as he got older, he'd stand in front of the telly watching the song or the singing, mesmerized by the cartoons
Yeah.
and the voices and the singing. And I think that that's really, the Disney movies, and they understand that. They get it. They get
Yes.
that kids get captivated
Yes.
by color. They get captivated by
Yes.
music and songs that
Yes.
are catchy and you repeat,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And that's when you start to notice the joy that
Right.
that brings. Disney have
Exactly.
got it absolutely down because they understand that you bring joy to a child, they will go back
Yes.
and watch Toy Story 8 or Toy Story
Yes.
25. We'll all be going to see Toy Story
Yes.
25 because
Yes.
we've grown up with Toy Story, all of
Mm-hmm.
us, and we
Yes.
all got something from it at all the
Yes.
different ages, right?
Yes.
And a young child will see it at very um, basic level, and an adult will see it at an adult's perspective, which is, I remember crying and like I was I remember sitting in the cinema and the toys are heading towards that, they're heading down like a runway and it looks like they're going to head up in the bin,
Mm-hmm.
they're heading towards the bin, and it was a bit like a James Bond movie, where you're just praying they're not going to go off at the end, you know, and I could feel myself sort of pushing myself back in the chair, like willing them to stay with me, you know. Um,
Yes.
and I remember saying, somebody said to me, that was really scary for kids. And I'd be like, yeah, I guess if you think about it, if I was like,
Yeah.
please don't go over the edge, please don't go over the edge, you know, a child would really be
Yes.
fearful, you know. Um, Another example of that would be, again, interesting, the movies Cars, you know, Disney movie Cars.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
the first time you get an introduction of a male car
Mm-hmm.
liking a female car.
Car.
You
Yes.
know, it's like McQueen and, you know, the other car are boyfriend and
Your
girlfriend,
friend. Yes.
you know, and the children are learning about relationships through cars.
Yes.
He wants to go off and compete. She doesn't want him to. And, you
Yes.
know, there's this kind of like parental type
Mm-hmm.
relationship going on. And I think that Disney get that, and they
Mm-hmm.
see that these are the arguments and the issues that children and parents have, and they're listening and watching and going, how can we put that into a movie? How
Yes.
can we make a child understand that better? You
Yes.
know? And
Yes.
it's understanding each perspective.
Right. Right.
You know, the lady car doesn't want him to compete
Right.
anymore. She sees that he's not won all the races and he's feeling a bit down and he's despondent. She wants him to give it up, and you know, you kind of got this whole thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now at adult level, we're looking at it as like a relationship breakdown, and you know, this could be the end of the cars. Oh
Yes.
my gosh, you know. And then all of a sudden it all turns out okay in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the point with all of these, noticing children's reactions to things will
Mm-hmm.
give you cues. They're
Yes.
non-verbal cues.
Right.
They're not always verbal. They're not always going to be able to say, I feel this, I felt
Right.
this.
Right.
But you'll see it in the way they react. That
Yes.
every time that movie comes on, and let's be honest, we watch every movie 100
Mm-hmm.
times, right? they
Mm-hmm.
never they never tire of them. So we end up knowing
Right.
the movie verbatim. I can walk in at any point and know exactly what's going to happen next because I've watched them all so many times. And you walk in and you watch a child and you can see him just wiping a tear, you know?
Yes.
And you're like, you always wipe a tear at exactly that same moment every
Yes.
time you watch the same movie,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
um
Yes.
I remember Ben watching 101 Dalmatians and being outraged. Cruella de Vil, you know, what a evil what she was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he crikey, Mr. Don't Do Anything Bad, he was like, he wanted to get in the screen. You know, he was going in to sort the problem out and save
Yeah.
the puppies, you know. And it's one of those things that we have to really look at that and say, yeah, well done for feeling that empowered, that you wanted to help
Right.
that puppy, that
Mm-hmm.
that thing that you felt that was wrong. And as a child, if you see that in a playground, if you saw somebody doing something wrong, like bullying or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, you would be prepared to step up and say, that's not right, because
Mm-hmm.
you've learnt that off of a television of a film, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And if you haven't learnt that at home, you've learnt it from a film.
Sure.
And so a lot of people condemn, you know, too much telly, too much film. I would far rather they were watching Disney 24/7 than being on devices.
Sure. Sure.
Because if they're on 24/7 Disney, they are learning. They are
Mm-hmm.
learning right from wrong. They are learning hopes. They're learning wishes. They're learning dreams. They're learning all of those things. Whereas on the devices, all they're learning is destructive at the moment. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
closing down. I don't need to talk to you because I've got my thing in my hand that I talk to. My
Mhm,
phone is
mhm.
my safety blanket, It's your people used to walk around with a cuddly toy. 4-year-olds are walking around with phones,
Yeah,
right?
that
I
is so
saw that the other
true.
day. I mean, I know that there are a lot of schools in the UK now are saying children have to hand their schools in as their phones in as they arrive to school. They're not allowed to have the phone during the day at
Wow.
all.
Hmm.
They're trying to clamp down on it because they can see that the kids come out the lessons, the first thing they do is put the phone up. And they've all got these stooped necks where they're all spending their whole time walking
Yeah,
bent
yeah.
over looking at the phone.
Hmm.
Um, and again, without wanting to address all topics, but one of the things that's so negative about the phones is that children have got comparisons.
Yes.
So, for example, if a child um, stops eating, starts going off things. I don't
Mhm.
like vegetables. I don't like. I've gone off that. I don't really. I'm not really keen on cheese anymore. And bread. Oh, I'm not so keen on bread. You should be getting these signals going. Hang on a minute. She's not eating this. She's not eating that. Why not?
What exactly? Why she's not eating
Right?
it? Yeah.
Why not? Is it that she doesn't like? I mean, Ben went off cheese. I can't eat cheese. I don't like cheese. You love cheese. No, I don't eat cheese. And it turns out his best friend doesn't eat cheese. So he decided he'd be like his best friend and not like cheese. So that was
Yeah.
fine. I get that. That's one of
Hmm.
those copying mechanisms. Get that. But when a child starts knocking off food groups,
Hmm.
it's because they're trying to do something, i.e., lose weight,
Yeah.
or they're trying to look like a certain image they've seen of an
Yes.
unrealistic picture, you know. I have a friend who's a hairdresser, and she says that people bring in pictures like Jennifer Aniston, right? They say, I'd like to look like that. Wouldn't we all? Right? That's, the truth of the picture is, I'd like to look like that. It doesn't matter with the best will in the world. If I cut your hair and it looks like that you're going to look like Jennifer Aniston. You're going to look like you with a Jennifer Aniston haircut. How do you explain that to a
I
grown
know, right?
right? So how do you explain it to a child who says, I want to look like, um, I don't know what's the big craze at the moment. I guess she's doing all the tours at the moment. What's her name? Oh gosh, probably the most biggest singer at the moment, not Beyonce. She's what's the lady called? Oh gosh, it'll come to me in a minute. In a minute, it'll come to me. She's doing a tour of London at the minute, and Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift has got a very non-made up face, but very made up. So she looks
Yes.
like the girl next door because she's got, her face is made up in a certain way.
Hmm.
But if you are a girl who's got spots or acne or whatever, it doesn't matter how much makeup you put on.
Yes.
All you're
Yes.
going to have is caked on makeup
Yes.
covering blemishes, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what you have to try and say is when they all go, which they will, when the cream works and when this happens, or your hormones are all sorted out because you're
Right.
going through these changes, you'll be able to look like that. You'll be able to get skin like that. You
Yes.
might not ever look like Taylor Swift. You might not ever just sing like Taylor Swift, but you can have nice skin like Taylor Swift, right?
Yes. Yes.
And my friend Michelle says, you can't turn everybody into Jennifer Aniston. What you can say is, I can cut your hair to look like that. Is that
Yes.
what you mean?
Yeah,
Just so we
absolutely.
just so we set the expectation, right?
Right.
You're not ever going to look like a photograph. You didn't come in looking like that photograph, and you're not going to
Yeah.
leave
True.
looking like, but
True.
you are going to have the haircut that's the same.
Right.
And the same
Right.
thing applies to our kids.
Right.
We don't realize that, we have this expectation. One of the boys at the school shaved his hair off. So his hair was 1/4 inch probably, and everybody was outraged. It was terrible. He got into trouble at school and everything.
Wow.
And then the next craze was to just shave the hair around the ears. So they kept a bigger bit on top, but just shaved. And then gradually the school said, that's it, no shaving at all. You're not allowed to have shaved hair. So what they did then was they lifted their hair up and they shaved the back of the hair and then dropped the hair just so they could be like, I've got a shaved bit. It's like, where did this craze come
Oh
from?
my
You
goodness.
know, right? But it's this unfortunate situation
Yeah.
where our
Yeah.
children follow the leader.
Yes.
They follow whatever they think is perhaps not always the right route, but they follow a route.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
route they might be following could be that they are looking at just success. I want to be a millionaire. I
Yeah.
mean, my husband used to be a teacher, and he once said to one of the girls, you know, if you spent as much time on your homework as you do on your eyebrows, you'd do a lot better, right? Now, you know, I've got a sarcastic husband, which I love, but the point is, you know, there were children coming into school in full face makeup, you know, their
Wow.
eyebrows, their eyelashes, or
Wow.
eyelashes like moo cows, you know, like false eyelashes and all the makeup and all the rest of it. Nails they're not supposed to do, but they got away with it so far.
Wow.
And then eventually the school clamped down. It goes so far, and then the school drop it
Yeah.
and they'd
Yeah.
stop it. But you know, he was quite right in what he was saying. You know, if you think it takes you an hour a day to do your face up, and yet you gave your maths homework 20 minutes,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and you wonder why you didn't score very highly,
True.
you know.
True.
But
True.
is that down to bad parenting, or is that down to the child is following the norm? All the kids have got false eyelashes. All the kids have got these big
Wow.
bushy eyebrows they're growing and
Wow.
painting and doing all this stuff to. Um, and it's going to be very difficult to say to your child, I don't want you wearing makeup to school
Yes.
because everybody else is. So
Mm-hmm.
why would you not? You know,
Yes.
it makes it a very difficult situation because the pressures come from different
Mm-hmm.
places.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the pressure of the parents, you've got the pressure from the school, and then you've got the peer pressure. And
Yes.
it's about trying to understand which one of those is going to win that battle.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're far better off saying, okay, well, the school is set the rules. We, you and me, have to come to some happy
True.
medium
True.
where we are happy. There's a little bit of makeup and a little bit more maths homework. You
True.
know, if we can work on that together, we'll
We
all be
good.
a lot happier, right? Exactly. And that's about, again, recognizing what is a strength and what is a weakness.
Weakness.
You know, the
Yes.
strength comes in the fact that they can stand up to their friends and say, I'm not allowed to wear the full face makeup. I'm only
Yes.
allowed to wear eye makeup. So that's what we
Yes.
agreed at home. So that's what I do.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And that still means she can be part of the in crowd because she's still got her
Yes.
makeup on,
Yeah.
but she
Yeah.
hasn't got the full slap on because she's not got the time for the full slap because
True.
she's got to do the maths homework, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where these happy mediums have to become part of
Mm-hmm.
your life. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have to change the way that we see situations
Yes.
to be able to understand what is different. What what do I need to change for the minimum arguments, because
Yes.
you want the minimum arguments but with the maximum success,
Right.
right? So back to the big fish, you know, big fish, little fish. You know, we don't want a little fish problem and this big fish reaction. We
True.
just want to keep them little fish, Because while they're a little fish, we're dealing with it, we're
Right.
handling it.
Right.
They're, they are being given the facility to show their strength.
Right.
We're in the position where we can show them that might be a weakness. So let's work
Right.
on that
What?
together. But you
Mm-hmm.
can do it in a gentle way
Absolutely.
without it
Blowing it
escalating.
up.
The, exactly. You got it.
Wow. Paulette, oh my goodness, you're an amazing, amazing person, you know. And
Thank
you
you.
touched on a lot of stuff this evening and in a very simple way to help parents to understand how can we know our child's strength and their weaknesses because the only way we're going to know is by paying attention. And we got to pay keen attention as they grow up. We gotta pay keen attention to them, what they're doing, what are their likes, what are their dislikes. And I really like when you touched on having a chat around the table because that is missing in a lot of homes today. You know, the kids can't wait to get up from that table. You know, they can't wait to run away into their rooms, you know. And that's the true essence of having those chats around a table because you're able to get to know your child's strength and weaknesses around that table. Because, as you rightfully said, come up with words, let them form sentences with these words, you know, let it be fun. And during that fun time, a lot of things could come out from our children. And
Yeah.
we could learn so much from them during that times, just sitting around that table and having those very beautiful conversations with our children. And we got to start very young with them, you know,
Yeah.
because many times when they are adults, it's difficult to get them to sit still around a table and have a conversation with them. Another thing I really like what you touched on is open honesty, you know, where your kids can come to you, whatever is it, they can feel free and vulnerable to come towards you as a parent and to have those discussions with you as a parent. Because many times that is lacking in a home. A child
Mm.
cannot come and express the way how they're feeling. And the better person to come to if you're feeling as a child feeling a certain way is to your parents and to talk with your parents and have this discussion. But we as parents have to give them that open forum so they could come and speak to us and feel comfortable enough speaking with us as parents. So we have to start to do all these things for our children because we want them to be comfortable. We want them, if they're going through any crisis at school, maybe bullying or whatever the situation is, they must able to come and say, you know, something, this is what is happening with me at this point in time. How can you help me? Or you can ask them, how can I help you? You know, how can I help you through this situation? So we really got to start now to help our children as we go along in life. Be mindful of them. Be mindful of the things and that we're saying around them. Be mindful of what they're doing because all of these things is what's going to shape them into adulthood. So we just got to pay attention. And Paulette, this evening, you really touching a lot of great points. I hope the audiences get some takeaway from these pointers that you give this evening because it's helping us as individual, for parents, wannabe parents, and for instance, sometimes you might have a young person who just give birth, or you might have a couple who just had a child. You know, all of these things can help them as an individual to what must I look out for with my child as they grow and get into adulthood? What are some of the things that I could teach them? So you really bring out some really good pointers this evening to help a family to understand, you know what? There are certain times you got to put away your phone. You know, there's certain times that we have to have talks. Tell me what's happening in your life. Let's talk about it. You know, so you really help us this evening, Paulette, and we are so grateful that you came back a second time for us and
You're
share
welcome.
with us, you know, because the way how you deliver your message is very eloquent. You know, you
Oh,
you
thank
you
you.
put you put the humor into it and make it fun. So
But
somebody could
that's the way you get the best out of your children as well.
exactly.
Because if you can make it fun, they'll talk to you. They
Absolutely.
really will, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, I on a final note, I watched a program the other day, and it was a dog trainer. And this dog trainer said, you never need to raise your voice when
Yes.
training a dog, right?
True.
You
True.
never need to raise your voice. And
True.
he talks to the dog and he chats to the dog, all like this. And when you watch the video of them before he arrived, she's screaming and shouting at the dog, and it's chaos. And I thought that is so true of us as parents. We don't really ever need to raise
Yes.
our voice. We
Yes.
don't ever need to shout. We don't ever
Yes.
need to scream.
Yes.
Actually, it's when it's delivered in a quiet, meaningful way, it
Yes.
actually hits
Yes.
home. It hits home a lot harder than
Yes.
if you're screaming and shouting, because
So true.
that's the norm.
True.
That's what they used to. So you
Yes.
change that. If you change it, just change up one behavior so that
Yes.
you now become a talker, not a shouter,
Absolutely.
they will be like, where's my mother?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
where's my
Yes.
father?
Yes.
What's
Yes.
happened? You know, who
Right.
is this
Right.
person? So
Yeah.
that's the other thing. It's humor always, fun always, but also, like I said, the raising of the voice raises the game, and it just goes up. He
Yes.
shouts, you shout louder, you know?
Yes.
And as I said before, the small fish becomes the big fish. And
Absolutely.
without realizing it, the whole thing explodes. So I hope people just keep that little thought in their
Yes.
minds and
Yes.
react in the same way that they always would, but just have in mind, hang on a minute, am I giving a big fish reaction to
True.
a small fish problem?
Yes.
And
Absolutely right.
likewise, is my child giving a big fish reaction to a
A
small
small
fish
fish problem.
situation?
Yes, yes. You're
Yeah,
so right, Paulette. You're so because many times it's just a little thing and it blow up into this whole big situation, which it don't need to go there. It's just a small problem, but it's in the way in which we handle the problem,
yes,
the way in which we as parents handle that problem, and at that point in time, that child is looking at us, how we are handling ourselves,
yeah,
and they are modeling after how we are handling ourselves with the
yeah.
situation.
And that will be the parent of the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is why we have to be so careful
Mm,
what we are doing in front of our children. Because
yeah,
remember, as you rightfully said, that's a parent for the future. And
yeah,
they're looking at us, they're modeling exactly what we're doing. And then when they go into that adulthood and they get married, they say, oh, my mom and dad used to do that, so it's okay for me to do it. That's exactly what they're going to say because I saw my parents doing it. So that is a
mm,
lot of that is how come a lot of times you find in relationships as adult certain attitude is being displayed in that marriage or that relationship because it came from since they were little kids. That's what they saw, that's what they
yeah,
know, and they play it out. It's
absolutely.
like playing out a movie. They saw the movie,
Yeah,
so they're acting it out now, you know?
yeah.
So we got to be so careful. We got to be mindful of the things and that we do in front of our children. Paulette, thank you once again for coming
You're
to
welcome.
this space and sharing such a beautiful message with our audience, because you're helping parents to understand that, you know what, we can change now and we can help our children to be better children going into adulthood, because remember we are shaping them from now for going into adulthood, becoming husbands, becoming wives for somebody else. So we want them to be the best of their best as they move
Yeah,
through life, because they're going to be moving into different spaces. And something I really like what you said before we leave, you said that many times we as parents want to live our lives through children. And that's absolutely right. I normally tell people that, you got to allow that child to be. That child came back to live their own life, and we as parents got to respect that child for what they came back to do. But many times we didn't get to do something in our life, and we want our kids to do that. And many times you find that the kids come very rebellious. They become very rebellious, and then we say the kids are bad. But remember, those kids, they want to live their life, and then we are throwing things down their throat, what they need to do to please us, and you are not allowing them to live their life. So we as parents, we really got to re-examine our parenting, how we really parent our children. We got to look and see what they love, and just enhance them and help them to live the dream that they came here to dream, and to live the purpose they came here to live for. We got to pay attention and not force our beliefs on them, because it stifles them and it stifles their growth. So we got to pay attention. We just got to pay attention to our kids and give them love, give them the compassion that they need, so they can take that into adulthood. Paulette, thank you once again. To the viewers, thank you once again. Those who are going to watch on the replay, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Light and Body, that you will never miss none of these episodes, because every week we try to bring a topic that is going to really enrich the community and really help you as an individual to move forward with your life. It's all about being of service. That is what we are here for. And thank you once again for joining us. Don't forget to share us out also, that this message could help some parent. It could help some parent. Paulette, links for her books is in the comments below. Also, the link to our books, Your Gut in You and Self-Care is Intentional, is in the comments below. Go grab yourself a copy to enhance your life. Have a wonderful evening, and see you next week here. Be good, be great, be fabulous. Don't forget you're good enough. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Bye, Paul.